Welcome to my Baltics travel guide. If you're just joining us, welcome to the channel. My name is Claire Hawkins and I'm a traveling singer-songwriter. I just finished an incredible trip through the 3 Baltic countries of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and now I'm here to tell you all that I learned and give you some travel tips and advice so that you can plan your trip. Now before we get into it, I really want to highlight that these are 3 separate, independent countries with their own languages, food, cultures, and people, and even though I am grouping them together in this video, that is simply because this is a travel itinerary that I highly recommend. I think if you can get over to that part of the world, you want to see as much of it as possible. But I don't in any way want this to be taken as if I'm saying that these 3 separate countries are somehow the same entity. So, with that said, if you want to see more videos from each individual stop on this trip, definitely check out the playlists on my YouTube channel. I have all those videos there. But for now, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview and then we're going to talk some specifics so that you know exactly what you need to know for your own trip to the Baltics. Oh, and if you're from any of these countries, make sure to let me know in the comments what I left out because I know that there's so much more I need to see. All right, let's start with the basics. So the 3 Baltic countries are from north to south: Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And the reason they're called the Baltics is because they are, of course, situated on the Baltic Sea. So we're talking northeast corner of Europe here. Because these countries are very far north, they do get very cold. So you want to make sure that you choose your time of year very wisely. Now, I am sure that all 3 of these countries look absolutely beautiful covered in snow. However, summer is definitely the most popular time to visit. Personally, I went in May, which was really nice because I think things were a little bit cheaper because it was still technically the off season. But it wasn't that cold. I was pretty warm, and by the time I had gotten south to Lithuania, I was just wearing a denim jacket. Budget airlines do travel to each of these countries' capital cities, and if you want to travel between the capital cities, you can actually rely on the buses there. They worked out to be about €15 each way, and they averaged about 4 hours each ride, so I found them very convenient. All 3 of the Baltic countries are members of the EU, so that means that when you're taking buses across the borders, there's no passport checks. It's really easy, really convenient. I highly recommend traveling by bus. We did take 1 train in between 2 cities in Lithuania. However, there is no train at the moment that crosses between the countries, so for that you will need the bus. In terms of getting around once you're in these capital cities, there's Uber, there's a similar app called Bolt, which we used, there's good public transit, but the best thing, in my opinion, is that they're all really walkable. One of my favorite things about traveling through the Baltic countries, and also one of the main reasons I'm making this video, is that this is a very popular travel itinerary. And what's great about that is that it means that if you make friends while traveling, it's very possible you will see them again in the next destination. I will say, I did notice that most people seem to start in Lithuania and work their way north, whereas I did the opposite. I started in Estonia. I don't think it really matters either way. You'll have a great experience no matter where you start and where you end up, but I guess maybe that's a reason to start in Lithuania. In terms of budgeting, I personally found that these 3 countries, and I really do mean the capital cities, were more expensive than I anticipated. Not horribly so, but I think if you're expecting a budget destination, you may have to adjust your expectations a bit. They are still considerably cheaper than capital cities in the west of Europe, but maybe not quite as cheap as I, for some reason, anticipated. People do say that Estonia is the most expensive, Lithuania is the most affordable, and Latvia is somewhere in the middle. So I do agree that as you travel south, things do get a little bit more affordable, but I didn't feel that it was a huge difference from one country to the next in terms of budgeting. In general, I think that this is a very choose your own adventure kind of trip when it comes to spending. It's hard for me to say what you should budget per day because it really depends what you want to do, and I don't think that I really stuck to a very specific budget as I was traveling. Similar to how people say that these countries get cheaper the further south you go, they also say that the people get friendlier the farther south you go. Now, this was not something I experienced. I just met lovely people in all 3 of the countries, but this is something I have heard from multiple people, so I don't know. Now, of course, each of these countries does have its own language, and I think whenever possible, it's really great to learn just a couple of words. That said, it was very easy to get by with English, especially in these capital cities. Really, for the most part, English is very widely spoken. Like I've said, I did spend the majority of my trip in the capital cities, but of course, each of these 3 countries has so many other places to explore. So please let me know in the comments, where do I need to visit when I come back to the Baltics? Now that we've covered the basics, let's talk about each of these individual countries, starting with Estonia. The capital city of Estonia is Tallinn, and oh my goodness, it is so beautiful. Tallinn's Old Town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and you can see why. It is very beautiful, and I was super impressed by the amount of medieval architecture that has been preserved in the city center. Tallinn is only about a 2-hour ferry ride from Helsinki, Finland, so it's really popular to visit as a day trip from Finland or vice versa. I unfortunately did not get to do that on this trip. I've still never been to Finland, so this is very much on my list for the next time I'm in the region. One fact that I found very interesting about Estonian as a language is that it's actually much more similar to Finnish than it is to Latvian and Lithuanian. Latvian and Lithuanian are both Baltic languages, they're both Indo-European languages, whereas Estonian is not. Estonia is definitely growing in popularity among digital nomads. They do have a digital nomad visa and lots of startups are based there. It's very interesting. I did not really get into the digital nomad scene because I wasn't there long enough, but I do think that it would be a very cool place to come and spend a lot more time. In terms of sightseeing, here are a few places you can't miss. First of all, we have Viru Gate. It's the entrance to the old town. You can't miss it. But then near there is Hotel Viru, which has a KGB museum, which was really fascinating to visit. Town Hall Square is a must. It's a great place to start your day if you're exploring the old town. And then make sure that you head over to St. Catherine's Passage, which is a medieval walkway. The Danish King's Garden is beautiful. It has lovely views of the city, and it's also where you can enter to walk the city walls. The Bastion tunnels were maybe my favorite thing that I did in Estonia. You absolutely have to visit. It is so cool, as long as you're not too claustrophobic. Petkuli viewing platform has a beautiful panoramic view of the city where you can also see St. Olaf's Church, which, fun fact, is the 19th tallest church in the world. And finally, if you have an extra day in Tallinn, I highly recommend visiting Kalamaja. It's a hipster neighborhood, it's very trendy, and it's home to Teleskivi, otherwise known as the Creative City, which is a very cool area of old factories that have been converted into cafes and shops and artist studios. It's a very cool place to walk around. Next, I want to share some of my recommendations for where to eat. You have to visit the Third Dragon. It's a themed restaurant inside the old town hall building where the servers are in character from the Middle Ages. It was very fun. Restaurant Munga Kelder is great for authentic Estonian food. If you're craving dumplings like I was the entire time I was in the Baltics, Pelmenkovik has some really good ones. If you want kind of a fancier or higher end dining experience, restaurant Radaskevu 16 is definitely the place to go. When you're in Kalamaja, I recommend a restaurant called F-Huna. Not quite sure about my pronunciation there, but that is located in Teleskivi. And finally, for cinnamon buns, you're gonna need to visit Pula Bakery. After Estonia, I headed south on a bus to Riga, Latvia. I'm not sure why this is, but I definitely get the impression that Latvia is the most overlooked out of the 3 Baltic countries as a vacation destination. I think this is really too bad because I had such a great time in Latvia. The capital city is Riga, and of course there is so much to do there, but one thing that Riga is definitely known for is the nightlife. I think it's actually a very popular destination for stag and hen or bachelorette parties. We didn't really run into too many of them. It's not the kind of thing where that would be a nuisance, but it's definitely a city with some fun parties. I learned that karaoke is really big in this part of the world. We had so many fun karaoke nights. I think if you're the kind of person that enjoys a hostel pub crawl, whether you're staying at a hostel or not, Riga is a good city to do one. And also the food in Latvia. I loved Latvian food, but I'll touch on that more in a minute. In terms of sightseeing highlights, one thing that you definitely have to do is visit St. Peter's Church and climb the tower for an incredible panoramic view. The nice thing also about this tower is that when I say climb, there is an elevator, so it's definitely doable. You may have seen pictures before of the 3 brothers. They are very famous buildings in Riga, and they also house the Latvian Architecture Museum. Speaking of architecture, if you are a fan of the Art Nouveau style, which is so popular in Riga, Alberta Street is the place to see it. I highly recommend a visit to the Museum of the Occupation of Latvia. It is very heavy. There is a lot of really difficult history that the museum covers, but I think the museum does it in a really good way where it's very immersive, and I just learned so much while we were there. Finally, one of our favorite things we did in Riga was take a boat tour. It was an hour long, it was very affordable, and it was just so beautiful and such a cool way to see the city. Now for food. If you are coming to Riga, you simply must try Latvian garlic bread. This is something that the friend that I was traveling with and I still talk about months later. It is nothing like American or Irish garlic bread. It is crispy brown bread smothered in garlic. It is so, so good. You can't leave the country without trying it. The place where we got it was Ala Pograb's Folk Clubs. Apologies on the pronunciation. That restaurant was just really cool across the board, so I highly recommend it. If you're looking to try some traditional Latvian food, there is a chain restaurant called Lido that is definitely the place to go. I went there on my first night in Riga and it was great because it's kind of buffet style, so you can pick and choose what you want to try. While you're there, definitely try the cold beetroot soup. You'll recognize it. It's hot pink. You'll see it everywhere. You have to try it before you leave the Baltics. We also had lunch at Riga Central Market, which has a whole food court area with all different kinds of food, both local and international. And if you're looking for an afternoon pick-me-up, we did go to this one cafe called Cruffins, which had croissant muffins, and they were delicious. Finally, we've made it to the southernmost country in the Baltics, which is Lithuania. Lithuania is the largest of the 3 Baltic countries, both by population and by land, and we did spend a little bit more time there than we did in either of the other 2 countries. Traveling south from Riga, we did get to stop in the town of Šiauliai on our way to the capital city of Vilnius. The reason we stopped there is because we really wanted to see the Hill of Crosses. The Hill of Crosses is an incredibly unique site. I have an entire vlog dedicated to it, so I'll make sure to link that. But it is something that I really recommend doing, even if it's a little bit difficult to get to. You can do it as a day trip from Vilnius, but I really liked that we did it on the way to Vilnius. So we took, I think, a 3-hour bus from Riga to Šiauliai, and then we took a bolt about 15 minutes out of the city, and then we saw the Hill of Crosses, and then we got a train from Šiauliai to Vilnius. It's not the easiest travel day, but for me, it was totally worth it. There was lots of camaraderie among the other travelers that we met in Vilnius. We made friends really quickly, and we all just went out together, which was really fun. In fact, we still have a group chat to this day. My sightseeing highlights in Lithuania were, of course, the Hill of Crosses, which I mentioned before. Gediminas Castle Tower has a beautiful panoramic view of Vilnius. It's actually free to walk up the hill, but there is a museum inside the tower as well, which I think is really worth visiting. I recommend visiting Lokishku Prison. This was a maximum security prison up until 2019, but now you can go and take tours of the cells, but they also have a bar and do concerts and artist residencies. It's a very fascinating place. You can't visit Vilnius without stopping in Užupis and visiting their border control. Užupis is technically a separate republic, but not really. It's an extremely friendly and warm area for artists. It's a great place to see street art, and you have to make sure that you visit border control to get a passport stamp. Now, you can't get your actual passport stamped because it will invalidate your passport, but it's really fun. I brought my travel journal. You can buy a postcard there and they will give you a little visa stamp. It's very fun. Lastly, if you have an extra day in Vilnius, I definitely recommend a day trip to Trakai. There is a beautiful castle there. I have a whole video about that as well, so I'll make sure to link it. It's just a really worthwhile trip. In terms of food in Vilnius, we went to this one restaurant that I really liked. I think it was called Etno Dvaras. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but that was great for Lithuanian food. We also got some really good bagel sandwiches from a place called Bageliste or Bagelistai. And if you're on a night out in Vilnius, you should definitely go for drinks at Plus Plus Plus. This is a chain of very, very cheap drinks. It reminded me a lot of Wetherspoons in the UK and Ireland. It's very affordable. You can get a beer for about $2 and they're just a lot of fun. That was just a brief overview of 3 beautiful countries. Like I said, if you want to see more, check out the vlogs that I have on my channel from all of the individual places that we visited. This was truly such an incredible trip and I really, really recommend this itinerary. Thank you all so much for watching. I have so many more videos on the way and I've already planned my next big trip. So if you want to leave your guesses in the comments, let me know where you think I'm headed next. And if you missed it, I did just recently release a new song. It's called Oh Daisy. Thank you to everyone who's been streaming it. I'll make sure to link it in the video description and please, please, please follow me on Spotify if you haven't already. It helps me so much, especially as an independent artist. Like I said, there is so much on the way. I cannot wait to share it with you. Please make sure to subscribe, leave me a comment, like this video, and I'll talk to you soon.
I'm working on my foreign